This is the grizzly bear, a 300-pound apex predator, an animal that wolves avoid and mountain lions yield to, and yet even this animal backs away from a wolverine. So do wolf packs. So do mountain lions. So do pumas, black bears, and nearly every other large predator that shares territory with this animal across the northern hemisphere. And the animal causing all of this is only a 35-pound wolverine, roughly the size of a medium dog. That is not a coincidence. It is not a fluke encounter or a bad day for the bear. It is a pattern documented across decades of wildlife research in North America, Scandinavia, and Russia. Again and again, apex predators in the wolverine's range arrive at the same conclusion: not worth it. The real question is why? And the answer changes how you think about every predator on this planet. Before we get there, though, we have to understand why the wolverine's reputation is so strange in the first place. Across North America, Scandinavia, and Russia, indigenous peoples independently treated the wolverine as something separate from ordinary animals, not just dangerous, but fundamentally different. Some called it skunk bear. The Algonquin called it carcajou. Norse tradition connected it to qualities other predators did not seem to share. These were cultures that lived alongside wolves, bears, and mountain lions, animals they knew intimately, and still, they placed the wolverine in a category of its own. That kind of reputation is not built on myth alone. It is built on observation. The real question is what those observations were showing. The obvious explanation is aggression. Wolverines are famously aggressive, unpredictable, and willing to fight in ways that make them seem not worth the trouble. Grizzly backs down because it does not want the risk. A wolf pack gives up a kill because the cost of injuries does not make sense. There is truth in that. But aggression alone does not explain the full picture. If aggression were the only reason, then bigger animals would simply overpower them. Grizzly bear is roughly 20 times heavier than a wolverine. A wolf pack can move as a coordinated unit of 6, 8, or 10 animals. Pure aggression from something 35 pounds should not consistently drive those animals away. Something else is happening. To understand it, you have to understand what a wolverine is built to do and what it can endure while doing it. Wolverine weighs between 15 and 40 pounds and stands around 12 to 18 inches at the shoulder. First glance, it looks like a stocky cross between a small bear and an oversized house cat. But that appearance is misleading. Its jaw is built around specialized carnassial teeth and a rear molar structure designed to generate crushing, shearing force from multiple angles. It does not just bite. It locks, grinds, and crushes, giving it the mechanical leverage to access marrow inside frozen bones that other predators in its range cannot reach. That matters in winter, when carnivores in the boreal forest are all competing for the same carcasses. The wolverine can feed on parts of the carcass that others physically cannot process. Its skeleton is dense for its size. Its claws are curved and semi-retractable, built for gripping rock and ice, not just digging. Its neck and shoulder muscles generate force that seems wildly disproportionate to its body weight. Biologists who handle them often describe the same thing. The grip feels wrong. It does not feel like a 35-pound animal. Then there is the fur. The wolverine's coat is unusually resistant to frost buildup. Indigenous Arctic peoples used it specifically to line the hoods of parkas, not wolf fur, not bear fur, wolverine fur. The reason is simple. It resists ice crystals from breath in extreme cold better than almost anything else. In practical terms, that means the animal can function in temperatures that slow down, immobilize, or kill other apex predators sharing its landscape. But physical design is only half the story. The more important part is what the wolverine can sustain over time. GPS telemetry studies have recorded wolverines traveling 40 miles in a single day across terrain that would challenge even a well-conditioned human athlete. Not 40 miles on flat ground, but 40 miles through boreal forest, over ridges, through deep snow, and in temperatures that can injure exposed skin in minutes. This is not unusual for a wolverine. It is normal. A male wolverine's home range in Alaska can average more than 500 square kilometers. That is a larger defended territory than a grizzly bear's. One animal, 35 pounds, patrolling more ground than a grizzly, and doing it in conditions that restrict or immobilize most of the other top predators around it. Here is where the simple explanation begins to fall apart. Grizzly bear in winter is hibernating or semi-dormant. A wolf pack in deep winter is under intense energy pressure. Every failed hunt burns calories the pack can barely afford. A mountain lion in a snowy year is often pushed to lower elevations and constrained by terrain. A wolverine is not limited in the same way. It does not hibernate. It does not slow down in cold. It keeps operating in conditions where other predators are physically compromised. When a wolverine finds a wolf kill in January in the Yukon, the wolves are already in an energy deficit. They have paid a high price to make that kill. They need it. Then the wolverine arrives. The wolverine does not beat the pack in a normal fight. It changes the math. To defend the carcass, the wolves would have to commit to a sustained confrontation against an animal that will not retreat, cannot be easily intimidated, and is fully capable of injuring any wolf that gets too close. That is the key. The wolverine does not need to defeat the pack. It only needs to make staying more expensive than leaving. In winter, with a pack that has already spent enormous energy making the kill, leaving usually wins. The same pattern shows up in the wild in other ways. In April 2017, researchers on Alaska's North Slope tracked wolverine prints in the snow and followed them for 35 kilometers before reaching a freshly killed caribou. The wolverine was resting beside the carcass. When they traced the route back, they found that the animal had followed a single caribou, a pregnant cow, across open tundra for 35 kilometers, not by sprinting, by sustaining the chase. Caribou was larger. It could move faster in a straight line over short distances, but it could not outlast the wolverine over that distance, especially in deep snow, where the wolverine's wide feet work like natural snowshoes. The kill was documented in the Canadian Field Naturalist, and researchers estimated the caribou had been alive and running within an hour of their arrival. A 35-pound animal had run a caribou to exhaustion over 35 kilometers and then killed it. That is not aggression in the way most people understand the word. It is a predatory strategy built around one physical truth. The wolverine does not get tired in the same way other animals do, and that is what forces every predator in the northern hemisphere to recalculate when one appears. What stands out most in predator-to-predator encounters is that the response is not simple fear. It is more like professional assessment. Grizzly bear backing away from a wolverine is not panicking. It is doing the arithmetic. The wolverine will not leave. Getting it to leave requires a long, dangerous confrontation with an animal whose jaws can crush frozen bone, whose claws are built for holding on rather than striking, and which will keep fighting even after being injured. That last part is crucial. Most animals, when hurt in a conflict over food, disengage. The injury makes the fight too costly. That is normal survival logic, but wolverines do not reliably follow that logic. Confrontations between wolverines and much larger animals, including gray wolves, black bears, and mountain lions, repeatedly show the same pattern. The wolverine keeps engaging long after most animals would back off. Researchers still do not know whether this is extreme pain tolerance, some neurological difference, or a behavior shaped by its ecological niche in a world of scarcity and constant competition. What they do know is the result. Most large predators in its range have learned, either directly or through inherited behavior, to treat the wolverine differently from other competitors. In Scandinavia, wolverines kill domestic reindeer in enough numbers that Norway and Sweden have created formal compensation programs for herders who lose animals to them. Those programs require herders to hire rangers who document wolverine den sites and monitor reproduction in exchange for compensation when animals are lost. This is not a minor issue. It is a government-level response to a predator serious enough to force bureaucracy into existence. The wolverine is not doing this in remote wilderness where no one notices. It is operating in managed herding landscapes around dogs, infrastructure, and human activity, in patterns consistent enough to require an organized policy response. One researcher involved in the Scandinavian compensation system put it simply: you cannot herd reindeer in Wolverine country without accepting Wolverine losses. There is no fence, trick, or herding strategy that eliminates the problem. The Wolverine is a fixed cost of doing business in its territory. That same confidence appears in human-adjacent settings too. In 2019, a Wolverine entered a neighborhood in Anchorage, Alaska. Over the course of weeks, it killed chickens, rabbits, and several domestic animals. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game issued advisories. Wildlife biologist Dave Battle said he did not expect the animal to begin targeting people. Not because Wolverines are harmless, but because in his judgment they simply do not bother. That distinction matters. There has never been a documented unprovoked Wolverine attack on a human in the entire scientific and historical record across North America, Scandinavia, and Russia. Not one. That is not because the Wolverine could not injure a person. It absolutely could. The jaws, grip, and fighting style are all there. It is because humans have not been worth the calculation. That raises a question researchers still cannot fully answer. What, exactly, is the Wolverine afraid of? The honest answer is not much. Field guides and wildlife databases consistently note that wolverines have no major natural predators except humans. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game describes them as active at any time of day, year-round, in any weather. A male wolverine can defend a territory of more than 500 square kilometers against wolves, bears, mountain lions, and other wolverines at the same time, without obvious changes in behavior depending on the competitor. There is one well-documented case from Yellowstone in which a wolverine was killed by a black bear. It remains the clearest predation event in the scientific record of a wolverine being killed by another species. Even there, the context matters. The wolverine had been trying to steal the bear's food. Even its one recorded death came from a situation in which it was trying to take something from a much larger animal. That tells you a lot about the ecological role the wolverine plays. It is not the apex predator of its ecosystem. It does not regulate prey populations the way wolves or bears do. Instead, it occupies a rare position that almost no other animal in its range can reliably fill. The animal that can access food resources that everyone else has abandoned, while still being physically capable of defending them against anything that tries to take them. In that sense, it is less a conventional predator than a force of nature inside a narrow ecological niche. The wolves, bears, and mountain lions that share that niche have learned, through direct experience or inherited caution, that the wolverine is a different kind of problem from the rest. EPS collar studies tracking wolverines and wolves in overlapping areas show that wolves consistently avoid zones where wolverines are active, not because wolves cannot live there, but because the cost-benefit calculation for a direct confrontation keeps coming out negative. So the wolves move elsewhere. The wolverine stays. Ecologically, that means a single 35-pound wolverine can effectively exclude a wolf pack from a section of land simply by existing there, not by fighting, not by displays. Just by being the kind of animal other predators have learned to rout around. Researchers in Norway and Sweden have documented the same thing in reindeer country. Wolverines do not just kill individual animals, they alter the movement patterns of everything around them. Wolves, bears, and the herds themselves. The wolverine acts less like a predator and more like a persistent variable every other animal must account for. That is an extraordinary amount of influence for a 35-pound animal. So when a 300-pound grizzly backs away from a wolverine, it is not showing weakness. It is making the correct calculation. It is recognizing the specific kind of damage a wolverine can cause, the impossibility of forcing it to quit through normal predator conflict, and the harsh conditions in which that fight would happen. The wolverine does not win because it is the strongest animal in the environment. It is not. It wins because it has forced every other animal to reach the same conclusion. Engaging fully is not worth the cost. Every predator on Earth uses some version of this calculation. Most of them do it quickly, using size, posture, and species recognition as shortcuts. A wolf pack can look at another wolf pack and estimate the outcome in seconds. A grizzly can see a mountain lion and know what that interaction is worth. The wolverine breaks that shortcut. Its size suggests one answer. Its behavior produces another. Every predator that encounters a wolverine for the first time and tries to rely on size alone gets it wrong. And the predators that live beside it across generations learn to skip the shortcut